Just about 3:35, everyone. Thanks so much for staying with us here on Chicago Live. Very important conversation right now. As there's now a $10,000 reward being offered for information leading to the arrest from a deadly shooting that took place just a couple of hours after the Christmas tree lighting downtown. We lost a 14-year-old in that shooting, and of the other victims, the many other victims that night, they were all teenagers. And so there are many questions to be addressed in terms of, yes, the violence that we saw, but just the status of our teens in the city right now. So I really wanted to have a conversation with a youth advocate who does so much to make sure that youth voices are heard, that our youth do feel seen and are exposed to positive people and places in our city. Obviously, one person can't do it all, but Jahmal Cole from My Block, My Hood, My City, thank you so much for your time and for what you do on a regular basis to try your best to prevent situations like this.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate being here under these circumstances, but I still appreciate you guys for amplifying the work that my team is doing. Thank you.
Absolutely. I am sorry that we're talking under these circumstances as well. In fact, we had planned on bringing you on the show in the upcoming week to talk about some of the tree lighting things that you're going to be doing along MLK Boulevard. But this popped up right after the Christmas tree lighting downtown. You had a heartfelt post online that I saw. I'd like you to tell people about, maybe if they haven't seen it, what went through your mind when you posted it.
Yeah, it's just heartbreaking to lose teenagers that are in your program. I spoke to a teenager and he told me he doesn't keep a lock on his iPhone. And I said, well, why not? He said, well, just in case I get killed, I want the police to know how to contact my people. I said, what? He said, yeah, I don't keep a lock on my iPhone because just in case I get killed, I want the police to know how to contact my people. Right? He's not thinking about where he's going to be 5 years from now. He was thinking about surviving today, right? He's thinking about today, right? And so that is that's tragic because a lot of our teenagers have they've been to 15 funerals by the time they're in 9th grade, right? It's hard to have hope when you're looking over your shoulder all the time, right? It's hard to be inspired when you're losing friends every day. And so I feel bad for obviously the family of the young man that lost his life. That's tragic. And but also I feel like God's got a battery in my back and so many others to continue to do the work we're doing. We're not going to stop. So.
Yeah, I mean, clearly the work is needed. Like I said, you can't save every teen, but there is this repeat, of these quote unquote teen takeovers that we see. Talk a little bit about, obviously the police can see them online. Most, it's whenever you're dealing with youth, a lot of it is online. But how we keep getting in these situations where teens find an area to kind of link up and we get mass amounts of teens that really don't have like a purpose, when they're gathering together.
Yeah, that's why I feel like I'm such against curfews. I feel like we don't need more restrictions for teenagers. We need more pathways. And the curfews are not going to stop bullets. Curfews are not going to stop violence because that's all reactive. It's not preventative. And so we need more investment, not more curfews. And so, yeah, teenagers, they don't have anything to do. You give them, we can't punish them without giving them something to do. Everybody was young at one point, and it was, I'm sure when they get to be 25, 24, a lot of energy is going to dissipate. But right now they got a lot of energy, and they need to get it off. And so I feel like this is not about, for me, it's not at least about adding more cops. It's about adding more opportunities. And the way poverty and segregation contribute to this gun violence is poorly understood. And I've been an activist for years. The way poverty and segregation contributes to this stuff is poorly understood. Gun violence exists because there's racial and economic injustice, high incarceration rates, high unemployment rates, poor neighborhoods, and under-resourced schools. When you have those conditions, I don't care what community you live in, it's going to lead to more gun violence. So if you want things to improve, we have to find individual programs within communities and help them expand to broader strategies, because it's not the curfews, it's not putting action on a piece of paper. It's about investing in youth and investing in nonprofit workers that are on the ground doing the work.
Are there particular neighborhoods that you're more concerned about?
No, I mean, I think, you know, anytime you use a city's homicide rate, I don't think using the city's homicide rate is a reflection of our success or failures at reducing gun violence, because the geography of every city is different, and in Chicago, the geography of every neighborhood is different.
Mm-hmm.
And so, a domestic violence dispute that ends up in a homicide in Lakeview is a lot different than policing than a drive-by shooting in Auburn Gresham. So again, there's not Chicago is block by block. It's a big city in a small phone book. So no, I feel like it's we know which communities are under resourced, as I like to call them, under resourced. When you go to the schools and they don't have any after school programs, the parents are working 2 to 3 jobs, so they can't support the kids. Those are, you know where the kids are most disconnected at. It's that's Googleable. But the thing is, I think that that's where God has at least called me to work at. I want to work in those under-resourced communities and work with those youth that are disconnected, so I can connect them to opportunities.
And we certainly appreciate all that you do. Again, you know, it's frustrating, and I think even the mayor said it is frustrating when you see these things and you know that there are people who are trying to help, like you, like your organization. And there are many organizations. You know, spent time in North Lawndale with like Boxing Out Negativity. There are many organizations in our city that all in a way are underfunded, that try to prevent situations like this. But obviously, you know, when you think about, I know you said not more cops being the solution, but for people, if they were at that Christmas tree lighting, you know, there were also videos of people with their families, you know, a little girl crying, you know, as her mother kind of scurried her away from what was happening. You know, if you're being fair to people who were down there just for a Christmas tree lighting and a family outing, they would want to see more cops.
Yeah, I understand that thinking, and I understand the fear, and I think that any kind of policies that are created out of fear don't make the best policies. It's like having it's the baby in the river analogy, where a guy is walking down by the Chicago River, he sees a baby drowning, he jumps in the river, saves the baby's life. He looks over his shoulder, he sees another baby drowning, he jumps in the river, saves the baby's life. He does that 2 or 3 times, and he looks at his friend and says, "Friend, help me, help me, help me jump in the river. You don't see the baby's drowning, help me." And his friend says, "No, Jamal, I'm not going to jump in the river with you. I'm going to go upstream to see who's throwing the babies in the river." So in this analogy that's being presented to us today, adding more cops or adding a curfew is not even preventing babies from drowning in the river. It's not even pulling them out the river. What it's doing is rerouting the whole river through downtown with these not in my backyard type ordinances, or let's throw more cops on a solution. Organizations like My Block, My Hood, My City, we're going upstream every day to prevent kids from drowning in the river, to prevent kids from pulling out guns, to prevent kids from going to jail. The work is violence prevention work. We're trying to prevent things from happening, instead of reacting once they do happen.
Sure. I mean, could two things be right at the same time? Could we, you know, have people feel like when they're at the Christmas tree lighting that, you know, they're being watched intensely, so that things don't. I mean, this is year 2 where we've had an incident to happen right after the Christmas tree lighting. So could that be like, yeah, we need to address this, but we also need to address this?
I'm open to working with anybody that wants to do violence prevention work. There's a lot of types of prevention. There's prevention from retaliation. There's prevention through intervention. What we do at My Block, My Hood, My City is primary prevention. We think exposure is violence prevention. So if you show kids better, they will do better. If they don't know no better, they can't do better. If there's 15 currency exchanges in the neighborhood and there's no banks, if you ask a kid what's a job at a bank, they don't know. So we expose them to that opportunity, and that keeps them going. That creates the force field around them to keep them safe. But to answer your question, I'm willing and hopeful, and I want to make Chicago the safest city. I think everybody wants that. We don't want to see what happened this weekend anytime. And I'm willing to work with police officers. I'm willing to work with nonprofit organizations. I'm willing to work with politicians. I'm willing to work with parents. Anybody that wants to stop, that wants to help prevent this violence, I'm willing to work with them.
Yeah. Have you heard about Alderman Hall's proposal to fine those who put up these teen takeover flyers and don't take them down on social media? What are your thoughts on that, if you've heard about it?
I have not. Unfortunately, I have not
Okay.
heard of Alderman Hall's proposal. democracy for me starts at the block level, and I'm willing to work with any alderman. I'm willing to work with any politician. But no, I haven't. I would love to learn more about that and do my research.
Yeah. What programs or initiatives that you have or that you've seen, it could be other cities, that you think work effectively to reduce crime in communities?
Yeah, for me, it's all about prevention and exposure. Again, we work with 150 students a month from 13 different high schools in Chicago. And they are the option schools, or the most under-resourced high schools, where the kids are very disconnected. So they've never been downtown. They've never waited for a taxi. They see Lake Michigan and they say, "What ocean is that?" They feel like they're excluded from downtown. So one of the things we do is we have something called Downtown Day, where every year we bring 1,500 kids downtown and give them $50 to explore downtown, so they can go to the top of the Sears Tower now, which costs $40 to get there. They can go to the Centennial Wheel at Navy Pier, which costs $30. They can afford to buy some pizza at Giordano's, or they live in the greatest city in the world, but a lot of kids have never even been downtown because they can't afford to be. So we try to, we try to take away a few of those financial barriers for them on something called Downtown Day. But our Explorers program, again, this is something I believe in whole. I started this program out of Cook County Jail. It was there where I realized a lot of kids had not been downtown. A lot of kids, they've never, they can stand on the 79th Street Red Line platform and say, "How do I get downtown?" They've never been, right? So we have all these kids that have all this talent and all these aspirations, but they don't know the way. And so it's up to folks like me and you to show them, how am I an anchor on Fox News? How can I be a chef at a restaurant? How can I be a Microsoft engineer? How can I be an architect? We need to show kids better so they'll do better. So for me, it's about our Explorers program. And there needs to be 1,000 mob livelihood in my cities. But for me, exposure is violence prevention. So investing in programs that expose youth to opportunities, that's where we'll see the best results.
Yeah. Well, what role do you think, if you are talking to, city leaders or law enforcement, and hopefully all at the same table, what role do you think that the city needs to increase in your efforts to decrease what we're seeing in terms of these youth having these issues, and what role do you think law enforcement should play in it?
Yeah, I think that I stand with Mayor Johnson on what he's doing as far as investing in youth and investing in programs. Again, I don't think we can police our way out of these problems. I think we need to make more investments. If you look at the budget for the city of Chicago, it's $100 million a year in violence prevention. I think we've paid $160 million already in police cases and police wrongdoings. And so I think we need to double that, to say the least, as far as that $100 million investment. But I do agree with the investing in programs, because there's a lot of people, you don't have to, reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of community organizations and nonprofits doing these work in East Garfield Park and Inglewood and Roseland. Find those programs and invest in those strategies. I think that's the best thing that we can do. As far as law enforcement goes, I would say that we're under a consent decree right now, and so I would start right there. And I would think we've only satisfied 16% of the consent decree of 16 to 20%. I would start right there, because we are under. It's not just me saying this. I mean, the federal government says that the cops in Chicago are targeting Black and brown youth, and they have to make these repairs over the next 10 years because they've been found guilty of targeting Black and brown youth. And so we need to have more cultural training for our officers. Like, how can you police a community without knowing? I'm not saying they don't, but I'm saying, how could you police a community without knowing the history? I think having a police badge gives you a opportunity to be who you really are. If you're a good person, having that badge allows you to do good. If you're a bad person, having that badge brings out your wickedness. So I would say start with more cultural training, start with understanding the history, walk the neighborhood and meet people before you start arresting them. So have a conversation with somebody on a porch, get involved in a nonprofit organization. I think those are things that we can do from a practical point if I was a police officer in Chicago. So.
What do you say to the youth who were downtown on Friday night? Like, if we're having a strong conversation about accountability and about making changes, what do you say to them?
I would say that you can be anything you want to be. I think the first thing I would look at youth in the eye and say is that the way you stay safe in Chicago is having big goals. Like, goals so big that wake you up at 5 a.m. If they don't wake you up at 4 a.m., it's not big enough. I want you to have goals that big, because when you have goals that are big, it creates a force field around you. I'm not getting in the car with you, and I'm not going to this takeover downtown if I'm trying to go to Duke University. I'm trying to be an astronaut. I'm trying to have big goals. Another thing I would say to youth is stay away from people that are just maintaining. If you see somebody say, "What you doing this weekend?" "Oh man, I'm just maintaining." Run. Like, you don't want to be next to nobody that's just maintaining, right? You need to have big goals again, because that's the trick. That creates a force field around you, and it actually pulls you towards your goals. And then I would start there. That's where I would start. Yeah.
Well, again, thank you so much for what you do on an ongoing basis to broaden their horizons and
Thank
to change the statistics that we see in our communities. Again, there are a lot of different nuanced conversations from what we see, and so your voice is needed at the table. Thank you.
Appreciate you.
All
Be
right.
safe.
You take
Peace.
care.